A comprehensive ban was one of the most important recommendations of the recent House inquiry into online gambling, and one I personally believe we need to see swiftly implemented. The government and opposition have both said the status quo needs to change, but we're yet to see real action or legislative reform. There is no time to waste when real lives are being impacted. The first step should be a total ban on online gambling ads. These moved to prohibiting inducements, preventing odds being reported during sports broadcasts, and phasing out team sponsorships by gambling companies. Secondly, we must ban political donations by online gambling businesses. In an ideal world, businesses that engage in harmful practices would not be able to exert influence over our political process through donations or favours. We're a long way off from this world, but we can take a step in that direction by prohibiting donations from gambling businesses. The third is to have Treasury look at how GST distribution is affected by states' gambling policies, and at the very least ensuring that states are not penalised for stricter gambling regulation. It's an incredibly narrow technical issue, which nonetheless shapes the incentives of state and territory governments when it comes to gambling regulation. Those governments are more reluctant to take action if the loss of gambling tax revenue is compounded by the loss of GST revenue as well. We should reform the current distribution arrangements so that it is no longer a problem, and we should consider providing incentives for those governments to take sensible steps to limit harm and problem gambling within their jurisdiction. The fourth is to establish a federal gambling regulator. As the House inquiry has shown, online gambling is regulated at the state and territory level. But as the activity is online, the businesses can be based wherever they please. This creates a regulatory race to the bottom, where states can offer weaker regulatory frameworks and lower tax rates to attract businesses to attract gambling tax revenue to their jurisdiction. We should establish a national regulator to ensure that all businesses are subject to a robust regulatory framework that emphasises the importance of consumer protection and support for those at risk of problem gambling, imposes minimum standards across all operators, and ensures that gambling businesses pay an appropriate amount of tax. The fifth is to require the government to make a formal response to the House inquiry into online gambling. This inquiry was a substantial piece of work. It received 160 submissions from across the community. It held 13 public hearings and made 31 recommendations. The final report was tabled back in June, but we're yet to receive a formal response from the Minister. The last of my amendments would prohibit gambling businesses from employing politicians or senior public servants after they leave office. There is a huge potential for conflict of interest for anyone who's responsible for overseeing and regulating these businesses. These decisions can have a massive influence on the profitability of gambling businesses, and those decisions could be influenced by the prospect of a high-paying appointment. We should act today to introduce rules that prevent this behaviour and protect the integrity of our political and regulatory frameworks. My amendment would prohibit any parliamentarian or senior public service from taking up employment with a gambling business for 2 years after they leave, or 5 years after they had direct responsibility for gambling policy or regulation. These are 6 things the government could do that would go a long way to improving integrity and delivering on community expectations about how gambling activity should be regulated and controlled. I strongly encourage the government not to underrate the depth of feeling in the community about these matters. A huge number of people genuinely feel that the prevalence of gambling promotion is ruining their enjoyment of sports and is ruining people's lives. And this is particularly felt strongly by parents who want to watch football or cricket with their kids without the constant references to gambling odds. I suspect the government will not be supporting these amendments, so I invite the Minister to address each of these issues I've raised. And I would particularly encourage her to commit responding to the online gambling inquiry before Parliament rises for the summer.